I've seen shift, but I've also seen standards lowered in certain areas of the country because they're trying to fill positions. And I think that is very dangerous because we're just looking for warm bodies to fill numbers of vacancies. And we're not looking at quality. We're looking at quantity and not quality. And that's the most dangerous thing. I'd rather be short staffed than have liabilities walking around me in uniform that are breaking policy, breaking the law.
Hey, everybody. Pete Bludworth with Corrections Unfiltered, podcast where corrections meets conversation. Tonight, we have Steve Maynard on the podcast to talk about his history in critical incident response, both as a team member and as a team leader. We're asking him, how did this shape the leadership that he used when he was working on shift? How did it help him become the leader that he became, the mentor that he was, and move him into the career that he has to be so successful? Now, please do me a favor, hit that like, hit that subscribe, share our content. Please comment. We enjoy having engagement on these conversations. So let's get in here and let's have a conversation with Steve. Well, hey, everybody, I'm back. Hey, Rick Harnes, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, Pete. How you doing?
Can't get any better than this. I happen to be recording from an undisclosed location tonight. So that's why you see the stuff behind me that you see. Chris McConnell, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good at the same location tonight.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Hey, we're all lucky because we have Steve Maynard on tonight. Once again, I was moving around LinkedIn. I keep seeing this guy popping on there. He's talking about a lot of things about corrections, whether it's emergency response, leadership, and also some other types of programs and things that go out to help make corrections better. So I reached out to Steve and said, hey, how about we get together and talk about it? Steve, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm good, Pete. I hope you are.
Yeah, we can't get any better than this, I don't think. Hey, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got in this role that you're in?
Absolutely. So, first of all, I'm here in North Carolina, a little south of Greensboro, centralized location in North Carolina. A little bit of my history. I started in corrections back in 2004 in a local sheriff's office. Our sheriff's office had 2 jails. My father kind of got me in the game early. I got to go hang out with him while he was a shift lieutenant back in the day during the summer when I was out of school. So I kind of got to see the inmates playing basketball, and it kind of just really caught my attention. I wanted to be a state trooper when I graduated high school, and then kind of worked my way to corrections when I broke my foot playing baseball. It just kind of led me on a different path. I really believed it was God's plan, and there I went. So joined corrections at the sheriff's office here in North Carolina, Guilford County. Got to explore and experience a lot of things. My first day on the job was my first security check was a juvenile that hung himself. Very first security check. So that welcomed me with opening arms. And realized, hey, you got to expect the unexpected in corrections. What a way to step into it. And then throughout the years, I became I was on our tactical team. I was on our honor guard team, peer support. I was a field training officer. Got to do a lot of things, but my passion in corrections was really the tactical aspect of things, and receiving all the training across the state at the Justice Academy, and then starting to receive training nationwide. And I ended up becoming the commander of our tactical team of 53 operators, and I enjoyed every second of it. But one thing I did not want to get in the way of was my family. I have a beautiful wife. She is a trauma nurse. She's on the rapid response team at the local hospital. She's been a nurse for 22 years. And then I have 2 sons, Ben and Luke, who are 14 and 8, and they are all into sports. And that's my pride and joy. And that's why I stay on the grind day in and day out. And back in 2020, we all know 2020 was one heck of a year with COVID and all sorts of chaos going on, especially in corrections. The CEO of my company, Guardian RFID, had reached out and said, hey, man, I'm building a team. I want boots on the ground, folks who can relate to the job that we're talking to and selling to, and your profile fits what I'm looking for. And I've been with Guardian RFID working with hundreds of jails across the nation, hundreds of prisons, and like I said, I've been doing that now for 5 years, and that has become my new passion, to help as many jails as possible get our system that really reduces litigation, helps make it safer, and ultimately get their team home safe. And that's what it's all about to me.
Hey, that's quite a background, Steve. That is quite a background. So what was it about if you don't mind, let me jump into that emergency response side of that. How'd you go about getting involved in emergency response, and how'd that come together to where you ended up becoming a commander?
Yeah. So before you had to be at the department for 2 years before you can even try out for a team, which I agree with. Get the training, get the experience, and then try out for the team. But when I was in high school, all the way up through my first 2 years working at the sheriff's office, I had the opportunity to go to the trainings because my father was the commander of the team.
Okay.
And I wore an orange jumpsuit in every training. So I was the inmate. So I got to be the inmate for cell extractions, and I got to be the test dummy for certain things. And I ate it up. I loved every bit of it because I'm a rough houser, and now I know where my boys get their rough housing from. And that's really what just caught my want and to be on a team. I was always on a team growing up playing sports, but then seeing how this team worked together in the correction setting, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work at the sheriff's office and be on the tactical team. That was my main attraction.
Hi, Steve, and welcome to Corrections Unfiltered. I'm glad we're able to connect on LinkedIn, and I'm also glad we're having a conversation tonight.
Yes,
and,
sir.
You have a lot of boots on the ground experience, and with experience, my first question is on use of force or emergency response. Now, use of force is often misunderstood because people see the worst 10 seconds without context. And I've heard Rick say this: use of force is not pretty. Force never looks clean in a chaotic environment. Cameras miss the inmate groupings, tension, noise, and other unknowns.
Mm-hmm.
Before the narrative can be explained, we are unfairly judged and digging out of a hole. Then on the other hand, we have incidents where staff members are observed beating an inmate to death on camera.
Yeah.
So my question is, how do we change this perception that majority of our correctional professionals are doing the right thing every damn day, but only a few, and I say 1% of the knuckleheads, are bringing down our profession? How do we change that, man? How do we change that perception?
Yeah, I think that's a question we ask ourselves every day when working behind the walls. Like, how can we make things better, number one? But when we look at the tactical aspect of things, I think the training and starting at the interview process, there needs to be an interview process for folks getting on a tactical team. But also, just to be a corrections officer, you need to know how mentally stable are you? How can you handle a crisis under pressure? How is your communication skills? And all of these things need to be tested. I think the generation that we have now that is coming in corrections, a lot of them have not experienced that. I mean, let's be honest. I know I tried to get my kids to experience stressful situations, and because when they get older, they're going to have to relate to, oh yeah, I remember doing this. And I still don't think there's an answer out there of how we can do it and keep it going other than train, and instill it in these folks' brains that you mess up, it don't only cost you the agency, a lawsuit, but it could cost you a civil lawsuit. You could lose your home. You could lose your family. You could end up behind the bars that you're guarding these folks in. And that's serious because I've seen it. I've seen officers use unjustified force. And I've seen how quickly it can happen. And officers that you never expect do it are the ones sometimes that use that unjustified force. And you're the officer having to pull them off of them and pull them out and calling the EMS because now the inmate is hurt really bad. We're not there to hurt them. We're there to restrain them and take care and keep the peace, So, I've been out of the game for 5 years, and a lot's changed in those 5 years. But a lot changed from 2004 to 2020 when I was in the game. And in 2005, you guys know, you worked in it. Force was different than it is in 2020 with cameras and audio and body cameras and just every eye's on you. It's kind of like working the street. Everybody's got cell phones and everybody's got cameras, and now inside the jail it's the same way. You have to do everything according to policy, and it comes down to training these folks the right way and making sure they are ready before you put them in that position.
What were some of the types of training events, or what were some of the stressful situations that you saw staff exposed to that they had the most difficult time trying to make the adjustment of not immediately going to force, but knowing to try to de-escalate and get the situation under control the easiest way possible?
Yeah. So kudos to the two FTOs that I had. I had Eric Carl, who was about 6'6", had 2 big championship rings on from football. Everybody respected him. And then I had Titus Haygood, who was the most squared away officer I've ever worked with. They were my FTOs. And on downtime, on night shift, we would sit there in the office and we would run scenarios. They would run scenarios through my head. Hey, man, we're sitting here and an inmate walks in your office with a knife. What do you do? Hey, man, you're doing a round, an inmate jumps in your back. What do you do? I mean, and they're just throwing these scenarios out at you. What do you do? And what it does is it creates these things in your brain because if and when it happens, you've thought about it. You know what you're going to do. And, you know, a lot of training, they don't do that anymore. They just train, here's your policy, here's what you do day in, day out. We're short staffed, let's rush through this, do the paperwork, and we're done. But you have to train these folks, and you have to get them mentally prepared on all levels.
I found most times when you try to talk to supervisors or you try to talk to staff about having those conversations in between count while you're waiting for it to clear, or whatever that little lull happens to be where you have an opportunity just to be around each other, was something that they really didn't want to do, but there's so much value to doing that because at least it gets the mind going and it gets a brief conversation going.
Yes.
And it gets that activated. Is that what you found also?
Oh, yeah, 110%. I mean, you know, all the training that I've been through, you know, during my career was over, I think my sheet said 2,700 hours of just tactical training, you know, being able to go to advanced cert classes and I'm one of the 17 advanced cert officers in North Carolina still. I think they eliminated those classes because they cost so much from the jail, the Justice Academy. But I encourage officers to go to these trainings and be role play, be the inmate, you know, volunteer, be involved. You know, just because you're an officer and you have no status or no role, you can still volunteer and be and role play and learn the high risk, high crisis situations that you're going to encounter. Not might, you will encounter, maybe not day one, maybe not year one, but it's going to happen. That's just the nature of the beast that you work in corrections. You know, and I can't stress enough how important that training is and being mentally and physically prepared. On top of emotionally prepared. You know, some officers can be the most fit folks, but up here they don't have it yet. You know, and I think this is probably the most important. You know, that being mentally prepared. I can go in there and do 300 push-ups straight and bench 475, but if I don't have it up here, I'm going to fold under that pressure. That fight or flight is going to kick in, and I'm flighting out because of anxiety or I'm scared, and now I'm a liability in the situation.
Yeah, Steve. But first of all, thanks for coming on the show. You were talking about you know, scenarios, and Pete brought that up. I go back to my first joint where we had a brand new lieutenant come in. We had a lot of burnouts. This guy came in, changed everything, and went, like you're saying, it was scenarios all the time. Your downtime. You know, you didn't have to actually deploy everything, but it made you think. And we were always thinking, and it stuck with me. Do you feel like what you're doing now, do you find that there's pushback because of budgetary concerns, that there's not enough time, we can't relieve the officers to send them through training? Do you find that there's some of that, or is it opened up more to where they're as a whole, they're finally realizing how important the training is?
Yeah, that's a great question because a lot of decisions that are made is relied on budget, training budget, or mental health budget. You know, all these things that now are being created over the past few years, we're seeing being implemented into the corrections environment now. Because to be honest with you, corrections has been put on the back burner for years. It's always been about patrol and sworn officers on the street, and corrections has just been that redheaded stepchild. And that's just the truth, right? So they have been neglected with getting the proper tools they need to get their team home safe. And it's not just physical tools, it's the training tools, the classes, the moral support, the peer support, all these things that compile into making a good officer. We're starting to see that. We're starting to see more YouTube channels and more podcasts and free information for staff to just soak up like a sponge and then wring it out when they're on duty. I didn't have any of that. I wish I did, Dave. You know, years 1 through 12. I didn't, or maybe even years 1 through 15. I didn't see all these podcasts and YouTube channels with all these videos to educate me. And now it's there. It's free for these folks to say, is this what I really want to work in or not? Instead of working in it because they can't find a job, or they just want to try to start a career, and then they find out the hard way after the agency has invested all this money and time in them, and they come into an incident and they say, this ain't for me, and they quit.
After you trained and you were kind of the leader per se, do you remember your first incident where you were in charge?
Yeah. So we did a great job of grooming the team leaders to become, the training officers on the team to become team leaders, and then the team leaders to eventually become assistant commanders and then commander. But I do recall my first call out as the commander. It was pretty serious because we knew we had weapons in the unit, and anytime there's weapons, I'm not just taking less lethal. I'm getting lethal as well. So we had the luxury of working side by side with our SWAT team. And so I called the SWAT commander. I said, hey, man, I know it's a Sunday. I need you at the jail. Send me 6 guys. Let's go. And so I didn't feel myself folding under pressure or getting that high heart rate or anxiety. I knew what I wanted to do because of all the training that I had been through. And we went in with bore thunder rounds and the shotgun. I had my less lethal up front with shields and my lethal in the back in case if we needed it. And we pulled out every single weapon in that unit with no incident. And I've never really been proud of myself. I was pretty proud of myself that day because we were in and out within 3 hours, patted everybody down, searched that entire unit, and found every weapon. Yeah, man, it's something I like to talk about every now and then. Like, I did that. I got this team together and we handled business. You know what I mean? So obviously every situation is not like that. It could hit the fan just like that, and the inmates could have switched and came after us. It could have happened. But yeah, that was my first call out as a commander.
Hey, I have used this phrase many times: when the time to perform has arrived, the time to prepare has passed. And you already mentioned it. I'm a huge proponent of recent, relevant, realistic, and ongoing training. In your view, are correctional facilities finally waking up to the concept with this high quality training and proper equipment? Outcomes will be more controlled. The risk of injuries to staff and inmates are lowered. Liability is mitigated. Community trust is built. Because it seems to some changing long-standing common sense policy is frowned upon.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a change out there, Steve? Or are you finally seeing it?
I think we are. I think we're seeing going uphill again instead of going downhill. Because we look at everything that corrections is going through right now with short staff, retention. It's hard to keep officers. I can go work at Buc-ee's gas station right now and make $33 an hour. When I'm working at the prison here in North Carolina and I'm making $20 an hour. And it's safer at Buc-ee's, and I have benefits. I mean, so we're starting to see leaders in corrections say, we got to fight for our folks. We got to get them higher pay. We got to get them more training, better tools, better uniforms for morale, outer carrier vests. All these things we're starting to see in corrections now that we just didn't see before. And it starts with little things, building that morale, making the retention stronger and better, and then making it attractive for new folks to come in and stay. And to answer that question in short, yes, we are seeing an improvement in correction. Debriefing is probably the most important part of the entire situation. I mean, preparing for it, executing it, but debrief is very important. Here's what we did right. Here's what we did wrong. Here's what we could do better. All that is talked about before everybody goes home. You have your reports and stuff, you review your footage, but I want to debrief with everybody that's involved.
Yeah.
How is everybody doing mentally? Because you never know what happened. It could be serious. It could be, less serious. And I think we did a very good job and we got better at doing that. And I'm starting to see a lot of teams and facilities adopt that same, those same steps, if you will, and have a good post debrief of every situation. I talk to my wife a lot, and when they have serious situations at the hospital, they get their team together and have a post debrief. And maybe they do it virtually when they all get home, but debriefing is so important after a situation. How are you guys doing? Do you need time off? Do you need mental evaluation. Do you need help? I mean, because that stuff, our egos in corrections, we don't want to talk about it. We just don't. We have egos. Let's just say, yes, we do. And the older I've gotten, I realized I got to get this stuff off my chest. I got to talk about it, and I think that's very important to have that debrief after any incident, whether it's serious or minor.
There is generally a format when you do drills. The incident is announced, staff respond, they do their thing. Then afterwards you sit around, you talk about it, how'd this go? How'd that go? It needs to be the same thing, like you said, for that debrief on an actual incident. What I have noticed in my last several years was shifts will become splintered, and they'll fraction off into like little groups. Instead of being an entire team, there'll be little groups. And the one thing that brings them together is stressful type environments or stressful training. And that's what that does, is it brings it together so they can talk it out. You're helping them work out a problem. You're helping them work out a solution, but you're also building that camaraderie and confidence. And that is the word that we need so much in corrections, is confidence, because people come into it. Some people come in extremely unskilled in many, many areas, but through the training, through the response to critical incidents and debriefing and talking it out, they're going to get that confidence. Would you agree with that?
110%. The camaraderie is huge. That's the biggest thing I miss in corrections, is knowing that every Thursday after day shift, we were done for the weekend, and my team would get together and we would go to a bar. And if you didn't drink, we'd go hang out after work. And that was our debrief from that 2 weeks of day shift. Just go and relax for once, and then go to our families. I miss the camaraderie a whole lot. I still talk to some of those guys. Still call me for advice, and I don't even work with them anymore. So I know that I did my job as an officer, field training officer, and a supervisor to help guide them along the way and prepare them for the next levels. But camaraderie is huge, but obviously confidence. And what I tell new officers when they come in, they're green, they're brand new. Yes, you're going to have your field training officers. They're going to do their job to train you to get you where you need to be. But find those officers who just walk around, they're confident, they're doing their job with confidence, and mirror yourself after them. Learn the job from them, learn how they're communicating with inmates, talking eye to eye, not looking down at the floor. Do these things that they're doing, and it will make you a good officer. And then obviously, they can't do it for you. You have to do it. You have to go in there and just bite the bullet and just do it. And that's the biggest part. So, mirroring yourself after some of these folks that are strong, confident officers, and eventually you get it. And if you don't, then let's be honest, there's other officers out there in the world for you to work.
Yeah, I'm going to just change gears here a little bit. You had mentioned the interview process for new staff. And I've always felt that was an important thing, that sometimes we are looking for a profile that I don't think is really conducive to good correctional work in a lot of places. Two factors. One, the standards that we set are not too high, but they're of a type that isn't going to really attract good correctional people. And then the questions that we ask these folks, we're looking for them to see how they think.
Yeah,
I always felt like maybe we're not really looking for the right answers. We've got it stuck in another way, and you kind of see that with maybe officers on the street. They want that black and white thinking. There is no gray area. Everything's it's either right or wrong. In your capacity, what you're doing now and with your contact, do you see that as something that could be shifted? Or do you see it in the right direction now? Because I've been out of the game for a while.
I've seen shift, but I've also seen standards lowered in certain areas of the country because they're trying to fill positions. And I think that is very dangerous because we're just looking for warm bodies to fill numbers of vacancies. And we're not looking at quality. We're looking at quantity and not quality. And that is, that's the most dangerous thing. I'd rather be short-staffed than have liabilities walking around me in uniform that are breaking policy, breaking the law. Now that I know, like we said earlier, before we even started recording tonight, one bad apple makes them all look bad, but that's true. You get a bad officer in there who's bringing in contraband or who is scared, and this inmate has promised him, I'll take care of you in here. If you meet my family and bring this stuff in. And that happens every single day in prisons and jails, every day, because that officer is not mentally prepared. And I put that on the agency. They rush these folks in to the hiring process. They don't do the due diligence. Sometimes they don't even do
Right.
background checks until they're in working, because they're trying to get them in so fast. And then they find out, oh, this guy's got a felony, or this guy's got a domestic. He can't work here. Hey, man, you got to turn your stuff in. I mean, what are we doing now? We can't do that. We got to up our standards and make sure we're getting folks in there that belong in there. It's a serious and dangerous job.
Well, as you said before, corrections, whether it's a sheriff's office or Department of Justice, it's corrections is like, hey, you should be just stay in the background, and it shows sometimes in our hiring practices. Not to say that there's not a ton of there's 99 out of 100 are good quality, but the one out there that you let slip through the cracks because of, like you said, I'm looking for a pulse. Oh, you got a pulse here, you're hired. That kind of kills the profession in a lot of ways.
It does, and that one
absolutely.
is the one that you see on the news.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then everybody thinks it's the entire agency.
Sets the tone for everybody.
That one person messes it up for everyone. And it goes at the top of the chain. If it's DOC, the director hears about it, and the director, and they need to up their standards. They need to do this. And it's just one person out of thousands at a Department of Corrections that messes it up for everybody. That's just unfortunately the nature of the beast. That's where we work. But I would love to see standards go back to what they used to be. That background investigation go back to what it used to be, and looking at references, reliable references, not just a brother or sister that says, yeah, he needs a job, hiring. But what is your future? What are you going to plan to be? Is this a stepping stone? Or you just want to work here till you find something else? Or do you want to build a career out of this and, really be an asset to our correction society, and that's a simple change. That's a simple change away,
At least make them lie a little bit, come on.
Yeah. Like Rick always says, nobody came in this profession thinking they weren't born wanting to be a correctional officer.
Right. Yeah. I don't know anyone said, I want to go work in a prison or jail.
I've never heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You mentioned debrief or say post-incident recovery. And like after a traumatic incident such as a homicide, suicide, serious stabbing, or drug overdose resulting in death, what else are you seeing leadership doing out there for staff that might be having a difficult time processing their feelings? For example, in my previous agency, we had trained staff members called the crisis support team. And after a serious traumatic type incident, the warden would activate the team, and this team would walk and talk with every staff member on shift. And of course, they were trained to pick up on any signs of distress. Something as simple as talking can release those, negative internalized feelings. And after walking and talking, the team would get with the warden, let them know if they had any concerns. And if they noted a particular staff member had signs of distress, a follow-up protocol would begin until such time a follow-up protocol was no longer warranted.
Yeah.
What are you seeing out there regarding post-incident recovery?
Yeah, so that has changed tremendously. And I'll speak on my former agency here in North Carolina. When I first started, if you had an incident, you had the incident, and we were made to just say, do your report and keep it going. You got rounds to do, you got meals to feed, you got supplies to pass out, and you don't think about these things because you're so caught up in the job. And then when you get home, you go, oh, wow, that happened today. That happened tonight. And I'm laying in my bed thinking, holy crap, this guy just died. This guy just killed himself. And these things happen in corrections. And now I've seen a huge shift at my former agency where they have a psychiatrist that's available 24/7, and you can call her anytime you want. And I used it. Like, I didn't realize that, I thought that was a weakness. Like, I got to talk to a psychiatrist because I'm feeling some way. But that's ego. That's our ego talking, and once I started talking to her, I realized, like, man, this feels good, this really took the weight off of my chest, and I feel better, and I can actually do things without thinking negative and feeling negative. And I encourage that to folks, like, utilize. This is free. This is for the agency. Go utilize it. And, those post debriefs, those incident, or we're sitting down and we're talking and like, hey man, do you need time off? There's nothing wrong with it. Like, gather yourself, spend time with your family. We check in with you. We can come to your house. When you talk to the chaplain at the sheriff's office or the corrections facility, all that's available to you. Show them that what they have available is right there at their fingertips instead of trying to defeat it themselves and because they can't. Nobody can. I mean, we think we can. We got to talk to somebody. You know, whether it's through prayer or actually talking to somebody, we got to do it. So I've seen a huge improvement with that over the past, I would say, 5 to 7 years with a lot of agencies.
I was going to ask you about that because it's very important, and there's been a big shift. I know my last several years in corrections, it was designed around that, make sure the information is there for the employee assistance program. I used to try to get my psychologist and my chaplain to go out together. So that way, if you didn't like science, then you might like religion. So somebody was there to help you out. But there was always those supervisors that seemed like they were always lurking around that wanted to make sure that people felt guilty for asking for help or guilty if they said that they need some time off. And I'm glad, if I heard you right, you are seeing a downward trend in that type of leader who feels that they need to put ego and bravado ahead of somebody's mental health.
Yeah, you're always going to have that one or two, individuals as leaders who they're the hardcore knuckle draggers that they'll never need help, and they're against getting help, and they're against you getting help because you need to be just like them. And that's not a good leader.
Let me ask you, considering your background, the incidents that you've been through and the training and things that you do, how do you handle that leader? If you identify that leader, who's that one who's walking around doing that type of stuff, how do you handle it?
As a younger officer, when I was 20, 21 years old, I didn't know how to respond to that. Like, okay, you're the boss. Luckily, I had my father who's been in corrections, my uncle who's been in law enforcement at the time, and I can go talk to them about the incident. My dad was the major over the jail that I worked at. So, me and my dad will talk about it. Everybody doesn't have that luxury to talk to someone about it. And my wife in nursing, I could talk to her about certain things and she would tell me about her day. But as a young officer, like I said, I was afraid to talk to my supervisors, immediate supervisors that were just, I had a couple that were former 82nd Airborne and they didn't, there was no weakness in corrections and they didn't believe in it. They didn't. And what I'm seeing now in today's corrections, they've had the experience as an officer and they've had that psychiatry help or that chaplain help or whatever it may be. And now they're able to, as a supervisor, show their staff, hey guys, y'all have this available. We've done it. Don't be afraid to do it. And what I started doing right before I left corrections, we would have pre-shift meetings to show everybody where they were going throughout their post. And we'd always say, at the bottom of that pre-shift meeting would be Kim's number, the psychiatrist. Yeah. Like, hey, there she is. Text her, call her, she's available. And it's always, it was in every pre-shift briefing. Not because we knew someone needed it, but we wanted them to be aware. It's available, guys. Go use it, utilize it. So it's just educating folks to know that there's help. And I think, like I said, we're seeing a lot of these supervisors now, they care because and they're getting to attend all these trainings now. We're seeing more classes and trainings that deal with mental health and peer support. And, when I was on the peer support team, they would call me and an officer would be like, hey man, I'm going through something at home. And it's not even work related. I talked to you, this is confidential. And we would talk it through. And sometimes I couldn't even relate to it, but I would be an ear for them because they didn't have an ear to talk to. And I say, hey man, just hang in there. Let's text me, call me, email me, come to the house, smoke a cigar with me. Let's chat, and that's all they need. They need that ear. They need someone to listen to, so, yeah.
Sorry, I changed gears again here, but you had mentioned earlier about, responses to emergency situations in your experience and what you're into now. You see what's happening in different facilities. Are you seeing better staged responses, more organized responses, or is it still everybody, here's a radio call and they're all running, this way and that way and leaving whole parts of institutions or jails unsupervised? How are you seeing things going in the industry now?
So there's two things for that question. Being short staffed is hard to send folks to training these days. So I am seeing that. So you're seeing some schools not even running classes anymore because officers just can't be sent to them for training, especially when it comes to the tactical aspect of things. But you don't have to be a tactical officer to respond to a tactical incident. You know what I mean?
Right.
If a fight happens in your unit, I consider that a tactical incident. You got to know what to do. Are you going to spray? Are you going to separate? Are you going to call for assistance? Call for medical? If he's getting stabbed, what do you do? So every officer has to have some sort of tactical mindset and training. But I feel that we're seeing some facilities that have that, especially your larger facilities. When I say larger, county level, 500 beds and above, I go to a lot of those. You're seeing where they have their own standalone teams who are training all the time, and then they train their staff. They involve their staff, like I said earlier. They're going to other agencies and learning how they're doing operations. So they're learning not just from their facility, but they're going to other facilities and training with them. And then I'm seeing like North Carolina DOC or DAC's SORT team. Those guys cover the entire state, and I've trained with those guys. And what they do is I've seen Dallas SWAT, LA SWAT. I mean, those guys are legit. They go in, they do. If they're looking for a fugitive on the street, they suit up and go find that fugitive on the street. They breach the house or whatever they have to do. They fly their drones. So all this training compiles into these tactical teams and preparing for this, and it's pretty neat with the technology aspect and the training aspect coming together and making these teams just better as the years go by.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that answers that question. I feel like I answered it, but it's kind of all over the place with that answer.
You got a part of it. The other part is, like, and Chris and Pete and Charlie probably will understand that, like, when we would have a call for assistance, there was anybody that had a set of keys to their own door half the time would be running for the same place. And so they started coming up with, there was this graph of, here's the incident, and there was arrows pointing this way and that way of everybody that was respond. And that was his staged response. And it was a joke because he really did have an eye for it. You don't compromise.
Yeah.
Color code. Remember, we had to paint them on the wall.
Right. You don't have everybody going to the same place and leaving half your institution unsupervised. Sometimes you're getting set up, and the inmates are getting you to go somewhere, so they've got the rest of the institution to themselves. So
exactly. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I just wondering if you're seeing that they're thinking that through more, and it's more organized. I guess staged. I always called it a staged response.
Yes. The short answer is yes. Back in, I think it was 2019, 2018. If you recall the Pasquotank prison here in North Carolina where 4 officers got killed, the inmate got the radio and was calling for assistance on the other side of the prison. So every officer responded to the other side of the prison while they were killing the officers and trying to escape. So we used all these incidents in training to say, back a while ago when I said use scenario-based training, we would train our staff. Number one, who's in charge and what's their role? Is it the supervisor that's in that area? He's the one or she's the one telling you to go here, you to call medical, you to call EMS, know your roles. Yes. And that's, again, it all comes down to training. Who's escorting medical? What radio traffic are we using? What channel on the radio are we going to use the overall channel? Or if there's an incident, we switch over to channel whatever, and that's our channel for this incident. So all these things come into this into play with this. And we didn't just train the tactical team for this. Every officer was aware that if there was a serious incident, a fire, an escape, or whatever it may be, we're changing over to a certain station, certain officers are, and we're all communicating there. So we're not interfering with the rest of the facility's operations. We would probably call a facility lockdown. Hey, everybody locked down because we have an incident, but there's specific folks with specific roles. And that was something we engraved in every officer there. We had 300 and some odd officers at the sheriff's or at the jail. And every officer knew what to do when there was a situation, and not to, like you said, everybody respond. And now you have 40 officers getting in the way of everybody. All you need is 5. So,
Steve, taking a look at all the emergency situations that you've been involved with, what is it that can just destroy a leader's credibility and just destroy the entire camaraderie of a team in those critical moments?
Yeah, so from experience, you would see some leaders staying, either staying visibly composed and calm during these urgency situations, or the opposite. So staying visibly calm and composed while still moving with urgency is something you want, but it also signals, control rather than denial. They are prepared for this situation. Owning the decisions and responsibility was huge. Some would say, this is my call, this is how we're going to do it, instead of deflecting or blaming the others. So all of that, as a leader, the folks under you, they see all this. They feed off of this.
Yeah.
If you have a confident leader who knows what he or she is going to be doing, they know how to take care of business, they have a game plan, and they execute it, there's nothing better than that, going into war with one of those folks and knowing we're going to take care of business. We're all going home at the end of this day. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And then showing just basic empathy. Some people need to feel seen and not used. And I think as a leader, just not on a tactical team, but just in general, whether it's everyday walk of life or corrections, showing the basic empathy to the dependents that are under you or your coworkers goes a long way. If they feel seen and wanted and just not used, and it goes a long way, and they stick around.
Steve, do you have any final advice for correctional staff and leaders responding to a crisis situation?
Yeah. So not just, training is obviously, we talk about training over and over and over and embedding that in your brain, running scenarios, but not everybody, let's be honest, not everybody's a leader. There are some who are meant to be those who go in and get it and take care of what they've been told to do. There's only a select few that can be a leader. And I think folks need to understand that. Back in my early career, I didn't really see myself as a leader. I considered myself a follower, and I wanted to learn from the leaders, but I wasn't a leader. The generation that comes in now, they're there 2 months and they're wanting to be a sergeant. They're wanting to be a leader. And it doesn't happen like that. You have to give it time. You have to learn the job, learn the goods, the bads, learn, being mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually prepared. All that comes into play to be a leader. And one of two things is going to happen. You're a good leader and folks want to follow you. They want to listen to you. They want to work for you and they're not calling you out every day. Or the opposite. You're not a good leader and they're not going to have your back. They're going to talk crap about you. They're not going to come to work. You're going to be short-staffed and you're going to be working the units and working control and doing all this. So it goes one way or the other. And which one do you want to be? So that would be my advice to anyone wanting to be a leader in corrections or just anything in life, specifically corrections. You have an option. Which one do you want to be?
Yeah, that's absolutely true, because the hardest part about corrections leadership, if you ask me, is the fact that everything can run fine shift after shift. You stay on building schedule, you stay on track with everything you're doing. And then that 1 15-second episode takes place that totally derails everything.
Oh, yeah.
And you couldn't have said it better, is how that leader handles that. And, on the outside, we might look calm, but on the inside, we all know we've got those, we're just going 100 miles an hour inside trying to get things figured out and trying to make sure we give that confidence to the staff. And leaders shouldn't be ashamed of that. That's all part of it. And then it's repetitions. The more it happens, the better you get, the more calm you stay on the inside, as long as you're calm on that outside. And you have to be willing to take that constructive criticism also. You have to know, like you said, those debriefs are so important. And even a quiet debrief after, when you see that there's an employee who's not really talking very much, not really letting a lot of information out, have a sidebar with that employee. I really appreciate the fact that you brought your previous experience with your emergency situations and how you developed as a leader and how you're able to take what you learned and move teams forward, because that's what corrections needs. So I want to thank you on behalf of Corrections Unfiltered for being here. I certainly hope that we get comments on this, because I hope people are listening and saying, you know what, I want to provide my goods, my bads on leadership, what I've seen, what I've done, what I need to change, or what I did to make myself better. We need to get that conversation going. We also do appreciate people. Please hit that like, hit that subscribe. Let's get this information out there. Steve gave us a great opportunity to get to know him, and we look forward to future podcasts with you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yep. I appreciate you all. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thanks, Steve.
Yes, sir.